Welcome to Life Church Division Weekend. This is such an exciting day for all of us at all of our campuses, so welcome. This is all about going back to the original Acts 2 church. We want to talk to you about how it all began, the original blueprint. So here we are, our campus pastors in a house under construction. We want to go back and tell you about how the original church started way back 2,000 years ago. It happened in homes. How all of our campuses, our church, New Life Church, began in homes. So let's start by talking about the Southwest campus. This goes back a long time ago, Jim and Camilla. So you guys weren't around back then, I don't think?
No. 1938, if I...
You were there, right?
Wow, this is getting too real. 1938, and it began where?
With Edith Ferguson in her home.
In her home.
She saw kids in the neighborhood and wanted them to know about Jesus and the love of Christ and invited them into her garage, and that's how this began.
So she didn't have a strategic plan.
No. She saw a need and she started moving.
Yep.
The story, as it's been told to me repeatedly, is that she saw kids in the neighborhood just on Sunday mornings, and she opened up her garage and started having the kids come in. And then all of a sudden, the parents started coming in.
with the kids, yeah.
And this little church developed called New Life Church.
Back then, it was actually called Southgate.
Southgate, yeah, Southgate Pentecostal Church of God. Then it became New Life Center, then New Life Church, and here we are. But it began in a home. And that's the heartbeat of this, the original blueprint. It goes back to Acts 2. They went from house to house breaking bread. It was in homes that the Spirit moved. So that's the way New Life Church began in 1938. So at this time, we're going to send it out to the Southwest campus, New Life Church, English, Pastor Jim and Camilla. Let's give it up for them right now, guys. Come on.
Hi. I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you guys to imagine something with me. As we're getting ready to read Acts 2, right? We keep talking about Acts 2. We're about to read Acts 2 together. But I wanted to take a minute and paint the picture of the context of where these people were and the culture and the political dynamic of that day. When you read Acts 2, which we're about to, it feels kind of bubbly. It feels nice. It's communal, right? It kind of almost has like a hippie thing about it, right? But the reality of it is this. Within about 60, give or take, years of this, the Roman oppression is quite literally going to squash the Israelite people. It's so heavy and it's so dark. The times here, there's famine, there's people that are just struggling to it's not just make ends meet. Like, this is struggling for life each and every single day. The hatred that is happening with these early church, with these people that follow Jesus. People are being hung and burnt the stake, and this is dark times. Really, really dark times. And so why I wanted to make sure that we paint this picture before we read this is to understand that this blueprint that we keep talking about of this Acts church was the Spirit of God unleashing in his people in an extremely oppressive and dark time. And they found hope. They found joy. They were able to move together and work together. And the church was unleashed to be the magnificent, huge thing that it is on the globe today. And it all started with this moment right here that we're about to read. Everything. And it all comes back to this place where God's Spirit moved in his people, that they worked together, that they submitted their lives to this new way of living that Jesus had just shown them and the disciples. And so that's where we pick up right now. So as we read this, I just kind of want to set that tone there, that picture.
So we're going to put it on the screen so that you guys can just read along with us. But we're going to read Acts 2:42 through 47. And it says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and signs were being performed through the apostles. Now all the believers were together and held all things in common. They sold their possessions and property and distributed the proceeds to all as any had need. Every day they devoted themselves to meeting together in the temple, and they broke bread from house to house. They ate their food with joyful and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. Every day the Lord added to their number those who were being saved."
How beautiful.
So regardless of what was happening in the culture, the Holy Spirit was moving, and it was just this beautiful picture. But I love at the end, and every day the Lord added to their number. So I want to ask you guys to be vulnerable with us for just 1 second. I would like to know how many of you in this room, by a show of hands, have been saved at New Life Church or have rededicated your life at New Life Church. If you could just raise your hands across the room. Look around, guys. That is amazing. How many of you guys, by a show of hands, have received the Lord this year? Several of you in this room. Thank you for being vulnerable. It's so exciting, the movement that is happening and what God is doing in this house, what God is doing through his church. And I love that we are going back to the simplicity, the original blueprints of that.
How many would say that life is complex? Yeah, that was rhetorical, guys. Of course it is. Life is unbelievably complex. The dynamics of not just existing, but existing with other people, right? Like, it is extremely complex. And in faith, it's just as complex. Learning this and you know, trying to move in this new nature that the Spirit of God gives you. And it can become so complex and so many things, so many moving parts. And I love what God is doing right now. God is simplifying. You know, this church is amazing what God has done through this ministry, and it becomes more and more complex. And we do more and more programs. And it's all because there was a need, right? And so we start something to meet a need. But here's what we wind up getting into is we wind up getting into a place where we had tons of programs happening, but we were suffering in our relationships. And the one thing that we can never do in the body of Christ is suffer in our relationships. It is of the utmost, is that we learn to do what God has called us to do, right? Is to go back to this original blueprint, which is where we serve each other, we live for each other, we meet together, we grow together, and then we come together on these Sunday mornings and celebrate and go ham because of what God is doing in our lives. And so that's what we're getting back to. One of the ministries that is probably just, I don't know, just really dear to my heart, and you guys hear us talk about it pretty frequently, but because of what it is and the grassroots thing that it is our food ministry. Our food ministry is such a pivotal, beautiful ministry that goes on here every other week, and it's amazing to see what God does through just meeting practical needs. We're talking about thousands upon thousands of people a year, thousands that get fed through the food ministry here. We're talking about dozens upon dozens upon dozens of volunteers, of people who come down, who give their time, and some of them are people that need as well, right? But they come and they serve, and it's such a beautiful thing, and we're so excited about it. And what we see is that this is not the crescendo of this ministry. This ministry's been going on for a long time, almost 2 decades. But this is not the crescendo. This is just the beginning of what God is calling us to do here at New Life Church, and why God has blessed us with that property across the street over there. And we really see that this year there's going to be an unleashing of even more potential and more ways for our church to make an impact in this community.
When we got to a place where we were out of parking on this property, we began to pray over that parking lot. And as the Lord gave us that parking lot, we also got the 60,000 square foot warehouse with it. And we had no clue what was going to happen and what we were going to do with that. But as the food ministry began to grow, we were looking for a place to house that. So we moved them over, and they were the first part of the first thing that God was doing in that building. Jim and I have a dream that building across the street is going to be a dream center. And as we rolled that out to you guys last year on Vision Weekend, I just want to update you guys. Throughout this year, we've met with project managers, we've met with City Serve here in Bakersfield, and we've also met with structural engineers so that we can begin to have the conversations and develop the plan for how to turn that building into a dream center, because we want to meet the needs of this community, and we believe that we can do it out of that building where we can touch our community. But as we begin to pray, Lord, what are you doing, and what do we need to do with this? Jim has been coaching our basketball and our football team for our school here at the church, and through that he's developed these amazing relationships. So St. John's called us a couple months ago on a Wednesday, and they said, hey, Pastor Jim, we're going to be upgrading our gym floor. Would you like to have our current gym floor completely free of charge? what in the world? So we gathered up parents, and we go over there, and we unpack, and we pull up this gym floor, and it's sitting over in our building right now, ready for that next phase, which is our gym. We have a floor that was donated to us because God is aligning things and he is moving things. Our business office, they have been working tirelessly on solar. We had a beautiful donation that came to us from our district office, and we will be installing solar in December. But guys, I want you to understand the complexity and the beauty of what that means for us. This campus is 11 acres, and we are operating almost 7 days a week. So we have our English gatherings, our Spanish campus, our school, our preschool, our West Wing property where our food ministry is housed, and our Kid Life and our Student Life buildings, as well as our central offices during the week. In the summer months, it takes between $15,000 and $21,000 a month in just PG&E to open up this building. That is huge. So what that means is that with solar, we're going to have the opportunity for almost $200,000 a year to go back into ministry, to go back into us being the hands and the feet that God has called us to be, to serve this community, to be a light in the darkness. And so we are so excited about what God is doing. Through this year, our school is oversaw by Ginger Martinez, and our preschool is we just appointed a new lead, and her name is Shauna Williford, because we believe that we want our kids to have biblical foundation and truth. We want our kids as little as they can be to know who Jesus is and what he means to them, that he will never leave them, he will never forsake them. So as we begin to develop that, it allowed us the opportunity to begin to work together as one house to re-envision our Kid Life ministry, so that we can use every ounce of space in that room as God is expanding our kids. We're running almost 500 kids a weekend at this campus. That is amazing. And we want to be able to use that. So we're going to be moving this nursery into our Kid Life over the next couple months for safety and for ease for you parents, but also that's going to open up our nursery. And we're going to be able to turn that into adult classrooms. We're going to be able to do our Connect classes throughout the week and on the weekends. We're going to be able to do adult discipleship out of that room. And so we're so excited about what the Lord is doing, and he's just opening up doors of opportunity because we are just completely surrendered and saying, God, we have no idea the bigness of what you're creating right now, but we are trusting you, we are following you. Lead us, God. And he is doing big and mighty things right now in this ministry.
We're launching our life groups today, and we're going to talk about the home groups here in just a minute, a little bit more through with my pops and the other campus pastors you're going to see. But yeah, I can't begin to tell you how excited, but really like we feel the weight of helping this get going. The home groups, you saw the She Conference coming up, but along with our women's ministry throughout the season, we're going to be ramping up. But we're also going to be ramping up our men's ministry. We have some amazing men's Bible studies that go on, and it's amazing. But we really feel the shift this year to really ramp that up. By the way, where's all my guys at? You guys in the house? Where are you guys at? Hello? Nope. That was awful. Awful. Let me hear it. Where are my guys at? I'll give it a C. I'll take it. That's why we need to ramp up
men's ministry.
We need to get some excitement in you boys, man. What's going on? No, seriously though, we feel called this year to really ramp this up because listen, I know what it means in my life to have I have a few men that are in my life that we really do like, man, it's we cut through it, and we live life together, and we share in life together, and we chew on the things that we're just struggling with together, you know, and I'm really excited about it. So we're going to be ramping that up this year, and some of you guys, I know God is going to be calling you to be a part of that team. So be listening for that. And there's going to be more information coming out in the following months for that. But part of the other thing that we see coming out of this season, is going to be the expansion of community outreach ministries, where it's not in the house, where it's not on these 11 acres, where it's out in the community, where it's doing things. We talk to people all the time. One of the reasons I love this church is because this is like a birthing center of dreams and visions. So often we see people going out and starting a ministry, and whatever that may be. I mean, it can be from the smallest of things. They see something that's going on in their neighborhood, and so they just start doing something about it. One of the things that has been on our heart that we're going to start doing is this wall that's right across the street over here, right? It's tagged up all the time, right? All the time. And nobody really cares, to be honest. We've called the city a bunch of times, and they got a lot on their hands. And so we said, well, can we do it? And they're like, yeah. So they're going to get us the paint. They're going to get us all this stuff to do. We're just going to do it. Well, then so we say that at the first service, and a guy comes up, and he's just like big-eyed. He's like, dude, you have no idea. This has been my dream. I see it all the time. And so I'm in the middle of like trying to get a truck and all the supplies together because I just want to start going around town and just start doing it. And I was like, okay, awesome. Well, let's join together. And that was just today. And those are the conversations we're hearing all the time. So we're so excited about this because we really feel like this is not just going to be the New Life stuff. We love what we do here, and we want to continue to do that. But the heart of it is so that you, each and every one of you, find your purpose in your place. We've been talking about this shape series, right? Finding your shape, your purpose. The reason we are talking about this and we find it so vital is because every one of you have a purpose and a place. Every one of you have this something that God gave you. And I know so many of you, you just don't feel like you're a part of it. You don't feel like you're engaged. But what God is constantly doing is he's calling his people to not just go to church, but to be the church, right? We are called to be the church. And we're not simply called to be the church on Sunday. We're called to be the church on Monday and Tuesday and every other day that ends in Y, right? Like we are meant to be the church in our homes, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our families. And the experience that you get, we love the fact that you come here for an hour on every Sunday and you get inspiration and you get fed. And that experience that you feel, I love the fact that, man, when I talk to people and they talk about what this hour means to them every week. But what would it be like if you could experience that throughout the week without having to come here? That's what we want, because then it becomes contagious, because then it starts to pour in to those around you, your neighbors, your friends. Guys, I don't know if you guys see this, but if you pay attention to the news at all, Bakersfield has some darkness in it right now. Bakersfield has some brokenness in it right now. There is pain across this city. And the only ones who can truly do about it, this isn't going to be through legislation. This is going to be through God's people stepping up and doing what God has called the church to do. It's that important. It's that important. Each and every one of you have a piece to play in that. Every one of you. It's through relationships. It's through letting go of our fears and insecurities. It's understanding that it's not about you, that it's about God and those people that are hurting and that are lost, and they need to know that there is hope where it feels like it's hopeless. They need to know that somebody cares, and that's what we're called to do. We're called to be the church, to be adventurous, to step out in faith. So join us, be a part of it, because we just don't want you to miss out on it.
I want you guys to watch the screens with us for just a moment. As our lead pastor and our campus pastors, when we got together and we talked about what does this mean for us in this next season? So we want you guys to hear the heart of how we're going to do this together over the course of this season. Watch the screens.
So excited with what God is doing at your campus. You just heard it from your pastors. I celebrate with you. It is beautiful how God is building his house, right? Well, let me talk to you for a second about how God is building New Life Church Global. This thing we call the New Life family. Let me tell you what happened this last season, all because of your generosity, your commitment, us working together on the house. This last season, we saw an average of a little over 3,100 attending all of our campuses. Here's the beautiful thing. We saw right at 6,000 people raise their hands, say yes to Jesus Christ. We're reaching the last, the lost, the least. We saw 336 of you get baptized in water and be marked as disciples of Jesus Christ. And then this last season, we also saw right at $3 million given to this ministry in our tithe and our offering. And it is because of your generosity that we are able to continue to be an Acts 2 church. This is a very, very exciting time for our church as we look back, but also as we look forward. As we look into the season in front of us, it's all about us becoming a closer family in the family of God, in the house of God. As you can see, we're in this house being built, and you see these blueprints, and it's about an Acts 2 church is the original blueprint, right? It goes back to the original, goes back to the beginning. And our pastors were talking about that just a little while ago. And I want you to hear our conversation as we talked about how our lives have been impacted individually by home groups, about life groups. Let's watch this. It's one of the reasons why we call, our place home. At all of our campuses it says, welcome home. And we're always saying that that's part of our language, welcome home, because this is our house. And that's biblical. Yeah. Both Old and New Testament, the house of God. We were reading, was it just today or yesterday, about this will be called a house of prayer. Yeah. This is we pray for the nations. It's the house, the home of God. And so, yes, there is the in our homes, the sacredness of our homes, and it's very New Testament's Acts 2, but also when we congregate, we come together at our different locations. It is truly the New Life home. Yeah. It's where people find their way back to Father and our big brother Jesus, and they find new brothers and sisters and a family that's going to love them and care for them and not give up on them. That's the spirit of our house. We want to raise up sons and daughters of the house. Yeah. Sons and daughters of the house is different than somebody that, shows up on a Sunday periodically. And we love that. They're welcomed. But we want people to really belong to the family. Yeah. At each one of our campuses, you are shepherds and you're spiritual fathers and mothers. And as you're raising up these sons and daughters of the house, it makes the family grow and multiply. And then we start, again, having babies. Yeah. And for Lydia and I, now we're having spiritual grandchildren. It's so fun. Just like with Jim and Camilla providing, John and Amber providing biological grandbabies, we're now in a season of seeing spiritual sons and daughters who are now having spiritual sons and daughters, and that's what it's all about.
Every house is a blessed place. Yeah. Always we're talking about, I don't know, in English we said the same thing, but always we said, the house that God gave it to us is for the reason. But always we see that blessed only local, only for our families. But we never look like a strategic. God put the house in there because He want to bless that neighborhood. Yeah. I mean, we have to see that. And when you say that, He touched my heart with a new heart, new vision to doing something different that we do every year. Like, you want to open your house? Now is you have to open your house. Right. Because you have the blessed place that God put in the neighborhood. Yeah.
Part of what the Lord's saying, a fresh word to us at New Life Church, is the word home. We're going to talk a lot about that in this new season because we branded the word life groups, and it is that. Life group is a small group that meets together, and it could be a men's group, a women's group, a young adult group, it could be a recovery group, it could be a freedom group. That's life groups, and that's not going away. That's who we are, what we do. What we're hearing from the Lord is, New Life Church, you got to go back to doing home groups as well. We're still going to do all these other affinity-based things, and but we want to make sure that we never get away from the original blueprint. Yeah. The original blueprint, and it's all through the book of Acts. Scripture says that they met in the temple courts. And within 30 years, that meant 100,000 people. 30 years when the church was birthed, they were having 100,000 people a weekend. People say, I don't like a big church. Well, they wouldn't like the New Testament church. Okay? So everybody met at the temple courts once a week. But then it says they went from house to house daily. Not one time a week. We're going to go over to Bart and Lori's on Monday night, and y'all provide the food. And we're going to go over Gladys and Hector's house on Tuesday night. But it was in the context of the home that they prayed and they sang, and someone would bring a talk, a sermon, something from the Scripture, and someone would bring the guitar. Jim would bring the guitar, and a sermon, because he does both. And then there was the prayer time that was special. We can't ever forget this. When you look at the book of Acts, it wasn't at the temple courts that the Spirit moved predominantly. Right. The Spirit of God moved predominantly in a home where you look at the foundation of this place here, it says that the foundation of the home literally shook with the power and the presence of God in a home. See what I'm saying? And all through the book of Acts, you see, Paul goes to the Philippian jailer's home, and then his entire family came to Christ in the guy's home. So I'm all for, bring them to New Life, bring them to our campuses where we meet for the weekends. That is our home. But man, it's something sacred about our homes. And Jim, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, even when you look at Jesus' ministry, some of the most prominent moments that you see unleashed in his ministry happen in somebody's home.
Yeah.
And there's people gathering everywhere and trying to shove their way in it, or, breaking holes in the roof and trying to lower down their buddy who's hurt.
Nobody break holes in my
so
roof.
many things where you see it. And I think for me, what always stands out about doing things in your home and how that translates to the church is that it immediately breaks down those religious barriers.
Yeah.
Because when you're only seeing each other in a church setting, it's real easy to do the Sunday smile thing and keep it somewhat superficial and kind of short. But when you're engaged in each other's lives and you're in each other's homes, then that translates to Sunday. That translates when you show up. Exactly. It's just about, there's my friend, there's my other person that we're on this journey of discovering faith and life and purpose and all these things together, and it immediately breaks down those barriers. And that's why it's so important that church isn't just this separate thing over here, that it's a continuation, a celebration of what God is doing in our lives, in our homes, in our families, in the day-to-day. It's unbelievably vital. And I think that what God is showing us is that this has to be a I don't know what the word is, but like this important thing that he's reestablishing in our church, because we never want to get to that place where it's about the religious side of things. It always has to be about the relationship side of things. Yeah. That's the way Jesus did it. That's the way the early church did it. And like we say all the time, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I think we've all witnessed it and we've experienced it. There's a lot of amazing things that happen in the church.
Of course.
There's a lot of amazing things. And New Life is, God has just blessed New Life with that anointing to just reach the lost. Our heart is, souls matter in reaching the lost. But I've seen more life change in homes. That's right. Every single time. Yeah. I've seen salvation a lot, in the church, but more life change for me personally, and for people that I've done home groups with. And even looking back, Joe and I, the very first thing that we did together, in ministry together, was a home group. You wrangled us into that. Right. And it was the best thing we ever did.
How long ago was that?
That was 92,
like 2
93.
And
you're still connected with those people, are you not?
That was what I was going to say is those relationships from 20 years ago when we were doing
are still our tight relationships.
We are still so close to those people. And that's what happens, man, when we get connected and those relationships develop and they just grow together.
A lot of it, our relationship, if you think back at it, it was in homes, because I remember coming over to your house watching. It was a basketball game. I remember it was a Razorback, Arkansas Razorback. I don't know if you remember that, but that was in your home. And I remember eating chips and a lot of big burgers and
And you had our kids.
And I love how God is just refreshing that idea, that dream in our hearts, that we want to go from house to house breaking bread.
Yeah.
And it is there that we're going to make disciples. Kathleen, you said it. Life change best happens in small groups. So you can see why home groups are so important to all of us here at New Life Church, to our pastors. And we're so excited about these next 4 weeks, because the next 4 weeks at New Life Church is all about home groups. It's about you getting involved yourself, opening your home, being a host, joining a group in homes all over our city, all over our valley, as we discuss the mission of our church. It's going to be 4 exciting weeks where all of our pastors that you see now got together. We filmed this thing together. Every week you're going to see our pastors talking together, and then you're going to share in your homes about the mission of the church and how it impacts your life as well. So today you need to sign up. Today you need to commit. Don't put it off. get in community and see your life transformed and changed. Let me tell you the reason why we do all that we do. Again, we're an Acts 2 church. We're on a mission. And our mission is what you're going to hear about the next 4 weekends in our home groups. But it's really about this. We want to get people to know God, be restored, uncover purpose, and then live their lives sent. That's the blueprint that we're talking about. Acts 2 church, that's who we are. It's about getting the one person to experience that in their lives. Because we can talk about the thousands. Last season we saw almost 6,000 people say yes to Jesus Christ. But I want to tell you, friend, we don't do it for the thousands. We do it for the one. We really do. We do it for the one. Jesus said that the shepherd will leave the 99 safe sheep and go after the one lost sheep. And that's what we're after. I just recently was made aware spiritually, emotionally, again, why this is so important in our lives. And let me tell you about the one person, the one guy, the one soul. About 25 years ago, this individual walked into our church doors, and he was far from God, didn't know Jesus, knew a little bit of religion, but he didn't really have a relationship with God. And he walks in, and he looked like he had it all together. He had money, he had material things, he had all this kind of stuff. But he came to New Life, and through God's grace, we helped him to get to know God. And then he walked through restoration, and then he began to uncover his purpose more and more, and then he began to live his life sent in a way that very few people ever get to. And it was on his 61st birthday that, as a pastor, I did his memorial service. And I remember as I was officiating the service, I remember the thought going through my head, I don't do this for the hundreds or the thousands or the tens of thousands. I do this, our pastors do this at all of our campuses for that one person. Because here's what I know. Even though my friend had his life ended way too soon at 61 years of age, it was on his 61st birthday that we celebrated his life. What I know is he is with God for all eternity. Think of that. Every person around you, every person on this earth has an eternal soul that's going to spend eternity with or without God. And at New Life, we really believe that, and we're driven, we're motivated. Everything we do is for that one person. Our heart, our desire at New Life is to see every single one of you. In fact, every single one of the folks outside of our church right now to become that totally devoted follower of Jesus Christ. A heart that worships Jesus, a heart that says, I will follow you all the days of my life. I will give myself completely to you. Right now, our worship teams are going to come and lead you in a song. It's a song that talks about how all of creation worships God, worships Jesus. And here's our answer, so will I, so will I. And that is our passion, that's our heart at New Life, to make worshipers out of every one of us. So we have many, many worshipers at New Life this weekend, and our hearts is to say, Lord, I will worship you, so will I. The angels, all of creation, everything worships you, so will I. But friend, there's some of you that are here today, maybe for the first time. Maybe you've been around New Life for a while, but you've never really made that commitment to Christ to say, so will I. Our heart, our prayer is that today you will be the one, because we are after the lost, the